Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Caroline Staten with Transition US, and this is one of our online events. Our principal aim with these events is to provide practical support to leaders of transition initiatives, those mulling over starting an initiative, and community leaders working on resilience building within their communities. And we would like to offer the webinars at no cost, but do ask that you consider making a donation. We have a donation button on the top bar of our website at transitionus.org. And thank you so much in advance to those of you who are able to do this. For those of you that registered before last Friday, I sent out the presentation to you in an email. And if you did not get that, you can find it on our website. Go to our home page to how to organize a Power Down Week. Click on that link and it will take you to the page that has the presentation and you can download it. So go ahead and do that so you have that in front of you. So it's the Power Down presentation, and there's some other handouts, but you won't need those for this call today. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guests today, Sarah Moore and Zahner. And they're both from Milwaukee. Sarah is a radical homemaker in Riverwest, an amazing neighborhood in Milwaukee. And Sarah started powering down in her home and quickly saw the opportunity to involve the community in that activity, hence the birth of Power Down Week in 2010. And Sarah brings her ideas and smiles to others through her creativity, movement, enthusiasm for gardening and permaculture, and her ambition in powering down. She believes in mixing activism with fun, spirituality, and community. And last year, Sarah spent 10 months in northern Wisconsin at Teaching Drum Outdoor School. And she continues to teach and learn as she shares her talents and the things she has learned with the world. And Zahner found her local family of friends through Transition Milwaukee after migrating from the Philadelphia suburbs in 2010. As a Transition US trainer, she thrives on discussions about inner transitioning and relationship building. She strives to create opportunities for herself and others to feel welcomed and connected without the pressure of feeling overcommitted. Her personal goal as a Power Down Week organizer is not only reduce our carbon footprint, but to also power down internal stresses. Zahner believes that through community collaboration, tapping into events and resources that already exist, and encouraging fun events that make us feel alive, we can truly power down. So today we'll hear from Sarah and Zahner about Transition Milwaukee's model of Power Down Week in its 5th year. And we'll hear how these ideas got put into motion. We'll hear their challenges, the growth, future vision for powering down Milwaukee. And we're hopeful that a number of you will pick up the baton and organize Power Down Week in your locales and share your learnings with us as well. So without further ado, I'm turning it over to you wonderful guests, Sarah and Zahner. Go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. This is Sarah Moore, and I'm going to start out just by giving you a little history about Power Down Week, and then Zahner's going to come in with the elements and challenges and how to grow more in yourself if you decide to do a Power Down Week. So our second slide here, what is Power Down Week? It's history of our objectives. And Power Down Week started as an idea. I had a friend actually mention that he'd gone to a community and they were doing it once a week together. And he said, let's try it for a week. And I just got so excited about the idea. I went down and started sharing it with everybody and saying, let's do it. And that leads to one of the objectives right away that isn't listed on here, but that I had as an ulterior motive, which was also to create a buzz and to get media attention and outreach, and to bring both attention to the transition movement, but the whys, which we're not talking about here in this presentation, I think, because we're all part of the transition movement. We're probably all familiar with the whys, but to spread the whys to other people, why we're excited and why we think this is important work to be doing. So we thought doing this kind of fun challenge in the neighborhood with our community would create that sort of buzz, and it did. We did get a pretty nice outreach and attention from the media, because we had both. We were doing it, and we had a really nice, strong team that was excited to begin with. And so we have this make your carbon footprint as small as you can and do it with others. And those are like the foundations of the objectives of the week. And the fun that we talked about in our bios, to have it be playful, to not think of this. I think sometimes some of us get in a fear place because of the whys, powering down and how we need to change our lifestyle, instead of thinking about all the positives and thinking how really it can lead to a healthier lifestyle and bring us together. So really an emphasis on the positive. And this also brings us right away to one of our challenges, that another objective that's not really clear within these two that different people would have. Like, I had an objective of learning through experience and learning through doing with others, and then lots of other people got really excited about also sharing learning and doing workshops. And so that's something that Zahner will talk about later in terms of getting clear, if you're doing one, what your objectives are beyond these basic ones, and how you want to theme your week. So sharing information, learning and sharing when you're doing it with others, and how you're ending up doing that, how you're doing it with others. So I'm going to go right then to the next how to power down itself. So after I started telling people about this idea of doing a power down week, a bunch of people then said, well, why don't we just start doing it once a week right now, just to kind of try it out. And so I did, and that was kind of the beginning of really getting the buzz going. We started on the internet and Facebook and stuff like that saying, oh, we're going to power down, and people got really interested in it right away. And a local reporter got interested, and I ended up being featured in like a home simplicity magazine. And so people were just intrigued with this idea of powering down once a week. And how I was doing it was just turning my heat really low, learning about how I could heat not my house, but heat myself, keep myself warm by putting more layers on. And I didn't use any electricity during the days. I did use my stove. I was a mom with kids, and it was winter, so that was and I didn't unplug my refrigerator, so the electricity was going to that still. But otherwise, I tried not to use the car. I would use the bus. And then just sharing my experiences with people, how right away, one of the first things I did was I had a day right away when my kids weren't here, and I had no phone and no computer, and I walked to a neighbor's house who I'd never walked to, and hung out with her and had tea, because I wanted social connection, and I had no other way to get it than actually physically walk there. So there was nice learning experiences right away with that, about like the heating yourself, your body, reaching out for people. And planning is also a big part for me about powering down. That's not listed here. Thinking ahead of time. If you know you can schedule things with enough time, then you can maybe have an opportunity to walk or take a bike. Lots of times the reason why we're using cars for transportation might be because we don't have enough time, or other ways that we're using energy and resources because we haven't gotten the support we need or planned ahead. So being thoughtful is a big part of powering down for me. With this little list here, we have like food and laundry. One of the things I did during Power Down Week for myself and my home was I would unplug my sink drain, so my water would drain into a bucket. And that just gave me a real awareness of how much water I was using I still had water coming to me from a pipe, but I couldn't just let it run. And then I would have to dispose of it by taking it outside during the summer, or if I do that during the winter months, I actually just put it down the toilet, which doesn't do anything with it except for build my awareness. But obviously we're using lots of electricity, coal here to clean our water, and so that was, and the water is this resource that I'm using. There's a really, really strong one for me to take that idea from just letting things flow in, but pausing them. Okay, they're flowing in, I'm using them, what's going on? Obviously other things like doing hand laundry and hanging laundry, things that I might not normally take the time to do on a regular weekday, or that then I would hang out laundry and just have that time to do that. I really, for me, in Power Down Week, I really like the idea of it being a staycation. So instead of going off and doing something exotic, you're staying home and really having time to be thoughtful and enjoy daily life, slow down, and so it's not a drudgery. You give yourself that space, and you find the pleasure in everyday activities. So I'm going to skip right on to the next one, which is Power Down Week 2010, and our very first Power Down Week, which was super exciting. And one of the things I want to mention right away was we got a lot of people involved by making it really creative and artistic. We did a really lovely skit that we presented a number of local events ahead of time, and made mud stencils, which if you scroll down a little bit later, you'll see just the people that helped with those artistic ways of reaching out then also were brought into the project. And so I don't know how many people we've brought in through our creative outreach, like beyond, but the artistic groups really, that activity really brought people in being part of that. So I was really glad that we reached out like that. And we made this actual social networking wall, which was really fun. If you look at the second Power Down Week 2010, you'll see some of those pictures up there. So for the actual kickoff event, we had people make little profile pictures. It was themed after Facebook, only we made them physically and then posted them up, and then you could come and learn about your friends and neighbors. The idea of this was that during the week we could actually send each other notes and communicate through our social networking wall. It was used a little bit, and when it was delightfully fun. It didn't fly. So as a project, I would love to actually try it again in a different way, see if it would work more. If you still have the same picture, just below that you'll see we have a little peak oil tattoo, and that was, we had henna tattoos at our opening also. So the idea being that people who are going to power down could actually get a little tattoo on themselves just to show for the week, like kind of your mark that you were powering down. We also had a game that somebody made up, so you could compete to power down more than other people. And that game I think was a really great idea, but also didn't fly as much. Our actual game sheet was pretty complicated, and so I think that people were kind of a little intimidated by it. The person making it was really excited by it, and I think got a little carried away, and we didn't really have the negotiating skills maybe to figure out how to have it be more accessible to more people. We had a really nice turnout for our kickoff. And I guess I want to say, though, right here, that we did not track well in terms of how many people really participated. Even with all that outreach, we did a great job of getting media attention and reaching out to people. We had a nice turnout for our kickoff and lots of different workshops going on, but we didn't have ourselves organized to track how many people were doing it. I would actually run into people who knew about it or would tell me, oh yeah, we were powering down, and I would always just be really touched and amazed and like, wow. So it's kind of this amorphous thing that I really don't know. And maybe a skill, if people had a more skilled crew, someone who really likes to organize in that way, would be something that people could do, is really track it better than we did. And then, boy, I feel like I'm just running through here. There's so much to say. Going down to the next slide here, I was going to talk about, we had a great making ice cream. I think in a number of these years we would make ice cream in the one of our community gardens. We had a making a cob oven project, which was really nicely organized and planned ahead. So there was a workshop that kind of went through the week and really grounded the first week. So one teacher who she practiced by making a cob oven the week before. A small group of 3 people actually made a cob oven the week before, and then they taught it the next week and had different groups of people kind of join every day for that project. And that one large anchor project kind of really helped the whole week have a cohesiveness, and then there was lots of other smaller workshops and projects going on, mainly around one neighborhood, our Riverwest neighborhood in Milwaukee. And although there was a few events further out. Let's see here. I'll skip on too because I'm just going through time. The second year we had 50 workshops. We had even more workshops than the first one. We had 20 different locations. And we had potlucks, this tailgate, and a new thing we did on our second year was a speed reskilling workshop, which was a great hit. And that was simply, I invited, I think we had like 10, maybe 15 people, maybe it was just 10. Everybody do like a 5-minute presentation on some simple thing that you could do to power down or reskill. We had making sauerkraut and grinding on grains and sharpening a saw, and someone had making a sandal out of a wheel, and just a beautiful slew of things that obviously you didn't practice really well, but you had this really nice taste. Or simple things, like sauerkraut really is simple. You don't need a lot of, you can kind of see it and be like, oh, I could do that. So that was a big hit, the speed reskilling workshop. And we also had house tours. If you go on to the next slide, you can see we had, that's my house right there, the yellow kitchen, and seeing people's permaculture yards and different things we were doing in our own homes to power down. We helped each other with projects. We helped with a water cistern and putting in berms and swales in someone's yard. There was a blacksmith demo. And then also the simple community, we sang songs. You'll see our really beautiful banners that somebody made the first year for Powering Down. And so those were really nice. Now we have them every year to hang up. We have, we associate this right now with July 4th, which we call Energy Independence Day in our neighborhood. And we put up all these banners and invite people to participate in Power Down Week then. And so that it's kind of a nice outreach event, and then Power Down Week happens after it. So this picture you'll see us singing. We had singing events. And then there was a cob oven made the second year also at a different garden. And and a Bike to Farm challenge, which actually is a really great idea and has also someone's made a really nice list of the different local farms you could bike to, but it hasn't been PR'd well, so I don't think that's been, people haven't been participating in it really the way I think it could be, but we haven't let go of it yet. And then here,
And actually, one other thing I just wanted to mention with the Bike to Farm. So Wes puts it on. He lives about a half hour away from Milwaukee, and he has a permaculture farm. And he was saying that he puts it on there every year just so people can actually see that they could bike to their farmers. And he was saying he puts it up each year, and that hardly nobody has participated. But however, he says he still likes to put it on there so that people can see the whole list. So even just awareness raising was a piece that he really enjoyed with that.
Right. Oh yeah, great. So that's a big part of the week, is just the idea of that we can raise each other's awareness. And then I was gone for 2012. So what was really great was this. I kind of started this year. I had all these amazing people like supported the first year and two when I was here. So then I left, and it continued, and Zahner was one of the people who stepped in. They had contra dancing and you have the speed reskilling, and it's just gone on. And I think Zahner will talk about this, but I'll just mention that part of it can be really stressful if you get into this idea of how something should be. But really the idea that the heart of it should be something that really is just about community building, doing it with your family, doing it with your friends. And I think if really our heart is there, and if it's really about making it enjoyable, that is what is most important, and it can grow organically from there. And it can become something even more beautiful, or it can just be what it is. It can be very small and simple. So I guess I'll let Zahner, do you want to take it from here, Zahner, and then you there?
Sounds great, yeah.
And before you go, Zahner, I just want to mention for anyone that might have come on the call late, and if you don't have the presentation, go to our website, transitionus.org. On our home page, there's the How to Organize Power Down Week. If you click on that, it'll take you to another page that has the Power Down Week presentation. And we're on about slide 12. And as Zahner had told me earlier, that she might not be referring to the rest of the slides, but that you're welcome to keep looking through them and might pique some ideas for the Q&A section that we'll have in a little while. So Zahner, over to you.
Yeah, so the ideas for 2012 slide that we were just on with contra dancing and speed reskilling. When Sarah headed out of town, Natalie Berland organized 2012, and I assisted her. And one thing that I noticed was that sometimes we do have these expectations of what it's going to look like, and sometimes we do have ebbs and flows of organizations or planning or events that maybe are annual events, and one year there might be a lot of people and the next year not so many. But being aware that this Power Down Week and powering down can be as simple as so there can be a range of, it can be as simple as finding a group of people who want to do something and putting it on a calendar and doing it, or just doing it yourself. It could just be you and yourself, and take a week to be aware of the amount of power that you use, the resources. What does our carbon footprint look like? And if you can keep those changes in your life ongoing, that's great. But if it's just that 1 week a year that you really bring that consciousness, that's where you're at, and you can take 1 week a year. But the point is, how do we bring awareness so that we can ongoing we can make small changes that will create large impacts. And so each person's powering down week may look different. So for example, I don't use paper towels in my household, so maybe during that week you pledge not to use any paper towels and you use cloth. So it could be as simple or as elaborate as creating events and having, we had like 50 different activities happening throughout the week, or it could be you and a group of people, or you and yourself taking a look at your energy usage and how to power down, and then share that with your household, share that with your neighbors. So moving on with the slides, there's a few elements that we talked about on slide 12. It talks about leaders and teachers. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to seek them out. Where did the activities happen? So one of our goals for Transition Milwaukee in particular, we have this part of town called Riverwest. And there's a lot of stuff going on in Riverwest. There's a lot of stuff going on in Bayview. The west side, they have some activities going on. But how do we build outside of these maybe small pockets? So location is really important. And how do we start in our own neighborhoods, whether it be the suburbs or whether it be different parts of the city that maybe don't come together as much. So for example, in Riverwest, there's a lot of activities that we can plug into the Power Down Week calendar. We're going to talk a little bit about marketing, special projects, media attention. On slide number 13, it says how to plan Power Down Week. There's no right way. Every way, whatever way you do it, is the right way. You can brainstorm. Even right now, some ideas might come up for you, and I'm going to ask you to think about ways that you power down in your own life, or things in your community that you see to reduce the carbon footprint. For example, even having a potluck at your house with your neighbors, instead of lights being on and energy being used in 5 households, now you're in one household having dinner with just one set of lights on. So thinking about how that's powering down, just having a potluck at your house, or being off your computers. So instead of having 5 households watching maybe a film, maybe come over your house to watch a film. Or seeing what you can do in order to brainstorm ideas within your community. Find leadership team. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Build out the activities, create awareness, set up the framework. And then you'll see the rest of the slides are pictures. And as Carolyn mentioned, you can just peruse through the pictures. So first I want to start off with the How to Power Down Week. I have notes that I posted that you can refer back to after the presentation. But I just wanted to go through these notes and give you a little idea of how do we reach out to people and find organizers. So for me, I assisted Natalie during Power Down Week. And what I was noticing was that she was holding a lot of the projects. So she really wanted to keep it going as Sarah was not around. And she was the glue. She was really the glue of the project. And so I hosted a contra dance that year in 2012. And then just last year, I was the key contact person, the point person, because Natalie moved to Boston. But so identify a person. It could be you, or it could be somebody else in your community, or a couple people. So Ann Hippensteel really helped me within my powering down, being the organizer. So she and I were kind of what I feel to be the central location for people to go to. And it could be organized. So you can compile these activities with one organizer, or you can work with a group. Working with a group is this community building process in and of itself. And one of my main things for Power Down Week is how do we get to know each other better? So that's the main goal for me as well. So how do we work together in groups or small groups? Think about who the enthusiastic people are in your community that might be interested. So for example, it might be a sustainability or resilience leader. It could be neighborhoods, churches, faith-based organizations, block captains, community garden organizers, grassroots local economic promoters, renewable energy enthusiasts, and so on and so forth. So think about the people in your community who may be seen as leaders within the community, but then also think about those who may not be leaders. So how do we look at everyone's talent and bring us together to create this Power Down Week? How do we contact them? So it could be in person, one-on-one. It could be social media. So for example, I'm about to put an article in our local papers saying, hey, if anybody is interested in organizing Power Down Week, contact me. Later on, I'll be posting, hey, does anybody want to host workshops, which we'll talk about in just a minute. So I'll be referring to workshops or activities as actual events that are happening, and then the organizers I'll refer to as the organizers. So that would be who compiles the calendar. So something else that I'd really like to think about is how do we promote other organizations and businesses within their upcoming events. So to begin to think about, when you think about the interest and the organizers, are there already key organizers who do Power Down Week events already? And how do we promote what's going on already? Think about with the organizers how to review what Power Down Week is, show them the tools. If they can organize activities, if they want to organize special activities, they could do that for the week or plug into what they already have going on. So if they have a festival of sorts, can they do it during the week of Power Down? And so right now I'm actively reaching out to look at the summer schedule because Power Down Week for Milwaukee is July 7th, 14th. So I'm asking other organizations, hey, do you have anything coming up? And we plug it into that week. So create conversations about it. And then a key piece in gathering this information is having an infrastructure or a tool. So organizational tool that we use is we have a website, powerdownweek.com, where people can post their own events. So they'll go to this tool, and so let's just say I hold a honey tasting at my house. And so I went to the website and I just posted that I was having a honey tasting. And it's a Ning site. You could also do it through Google Doc or an Excel spreadsheet, old-fashioned pen and paper. So you can actually have people call you, and you could just put a pen and paper and just jot it down, and then you can get the word out. So we'll talk more about how to get that word out. But set up your infrastructure. What is your organizational tool? What does that look like? think about how people will be able to reach out to you and let you know that, hey, I want to do this or I want to do that. It could also be a chalkboard in a centralized location or a dry erase board. So you could just have a calendar set up and say, hey, Power Down Week schedule, feel free to add to this list if you want to hold a workshop. And that way it could be in a centralized location. People can see it and they can add to it. But what is the tool to keep the organizing together? And then have consistent communication with the folks who are running the activities. So communication can be in person, again, via phone or teleconference. But how do you let them know? Or how do you communicate? What might that look like with people who are doing activities? And then have at least one person be the main contact person. So as I mentioned, have at least one person be the point person and make sure that people know how to get a hold of you. We're going to talk more about that during the week. So if I'm powering down and trying not to use my phone or trying not to use the internet, I don't want people to have to power up to look at the schedule. I don't want people to have to call me if I'm trying not to use my phone that week. So that's the challenge that happened last year in miscommunication. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. When we think about the activities, as Sarah mentioned, it could be a personal challenge. So you could see for that week, could you not use any electronics? So maybe you see what it's like for a day or two without your phones or without maybe iPads or computers. What might it look like for a day or for a week? I don't know if it's doable for a week for some, but what can we do about minimizing our use of electronics? And it also could be a group challenge, such as your family or your household, as Sarah mentioned. Me and a few of my housemates, we try not to use lights that week. So we try to use candlelight or just wake up and go to bed with the sun, which is a really, really nice experience to just say, whoa, I got to get everything done before the sun goes down. And it feels really good to just relax and calm down in the evening. And we do have some candlelight. But it could be a group challenge within your household or within your neighbors. It could also be something like, how can we just take out that trash bag once this week? So maybe we save the trash bag instead of using 2 or 3 trash bags that week. Can we just use 1 trash bag a week or no trash? And we just do compost and recyclables? So meeting yourself or recognizing where you're at within your powering down, and then taking yourself just a bit further. A business challenge, so turning off lights during the day. Hey, Sarah, do you mind speaking a little bit about, did you contact businesses to ask them to turn their lights down during the day? Actually, Sarah, I think you're on mute.
Oh, I'm on mute. We definitely went around to businesses, and we had a good number of businesses power down. The most powerful one was our local co-op that turned off their lights just during the day. So they had lights on at night when they needed them, but during the day you realize you don't even need them. And it's just really lovely to come into this place. And then they had a nice little sign that someone made for their door that said why their lights were off. And even in their coolers and some of like their water and dairy coolers, the lights were off, but you could still see with the nice big light windows. So we had a whole outreach to business teams, I think the first year or two. I don't think you guys did the last couple of years, but
so different folks, different organizers will have different passions and different abilities to reach out. So last year I wasn't able to reach out to businesses as much. However, I did we'll talk a little bit more about publicizing. I had the calendars, I printed out the calendar and had them at local businesses. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. But the point of this week is to have fun. So if it's mid-July, so for example, Power Down Week for Milwaukee is July 7th to 14th. It's the Sunday to Sunday after 4th of July. And that's changed a bit too. That's been the last 2 to 3 years. It's been that time. This will be our 3rd year, the Sunday to Sunday at the 4th of July. And what I've realized is that this is a week to have fun. And so if turning off your air conditioner, let's just say, so some people say, there's no way I'm powering down. It's mid-July. I'm using my air conditioner. And so I'm not here to convince you otherwise, but what I am here to say is, can we be mindful of that? I'm not asking you to put yourself in a situation that you may be perceived as unsafe or unhealthy for you, but what can we do to bring awareness? And so if something becomes too much of a stressor, then it might actually be having the opposite effect where people might resent turning off their air conditioning that week. So what can we do to meet ourselves where we're at and push ourselves a little bit beyond our comfort zone, which builds strength. So thinking about, how do we power down while also meeting ourselves where we're at? So you might limit your your usage of air conditioning versus completely stopping if that's not comfortable for people, or be uncomfortable, but it's their decision. I'm not here to convince, I'm here to encourage, or I'm here to support. And then also thinking about how Power Down Week can be at different times of the year. So it doesn't need to be just this one week. We also facilitate activities, specifically reach out to people who create events or already have events happening. So reach out to them. So as I mentioned, how do we plug in and how do we work together? So for example, we have what's called an underwear bike ride. And the underwear bike ride happens once a month during the summer. And we have it during Power Down Week. And a couple hundred people show up and they bike around. And the point of it is to promote positive self-body image. And you take your clothes off and you donate them to local secondhand stores to help raise money for local charities. So it's a huge event with lots of people, and we plug it into the calendar. Or people can organize workshops, events, gatherings, and they can do things such as promote their own business. So let's just say I just became a yoga teacher and I want to do yoga in the gardens. So I go to my backyard garden and I have a yoga class. Or I go to the park. One thing for myself personally that I would like to do this Power Down Week is to watch the sunrise and sunset. So to go to the lake and watch the sunrise, and then there's a park down the street from my house where you can overlook, it's a very high park at a big hill, and it overlooks the city, and to watch the sunset. So just take a few minutes that week. That's my goal. I'm not sure if it will definitely happen, but I'm going to put it on the schedule for at least 2 days that week for myself. So thinking about how do we get workshops, events, and gatherings onto the calendar, how do we reach out to people who are excited about it? We also want to think about, does the workshop facilitator charge for the event? So if I'm trying to promote a business, could I charge a couple dollars? Or if I need materials, what am I going to do with materials? So some people, for example, my friend Lauren helped people make their own shampoo. And so she had them bring bottles. And she provided some of the ingredients to make the products. You could also do how to make your own household cleaners. You could ask people to bring their own materials, or you could maybe charge so that you can get reimbursed, but you may not know how many people are going. So is there a RSVP? Do they need to RSVP you? There's all these questions when you think about each individual workshop, and it's the workshop, the person who's holding the activity or the workshop, really work with them to ask them what they want. But for me, I like to see Power Down Week as free fun. That's my personal free or very minimal amount of money. But then also I do want to promote folks, if they do want to charge, what might that look like? So I'm not saying that it's not doable, but it's just something to think about, fees. When we think about publicizing, or something else along that, one other thing before I go into publicizing, if people, so let's just say we have a workshop happening at a local, we have a kitchen here in Riverwest, and so somebody's having a workshop there and it's in a building. Liability is something that does come up, and so each organization, each person, each city will have different things that you are or are not able to do. But thinking about what is your comfort level? Is this a group of community members coming together? And so I put that you're responsible for your safety. And so I put that in publicizing within the newspaper articles, and at the bottom is the calendar. So if you don't feel comfortable participating in an activity, you're able to not participate. But then also there might be nonprofits or there might be other organizations that might have to have you sign a liability form. So if I'm doing a yoga class as a teacher, I might have to have that. So it's their responsibility to think about their comfort levels as the activity directors or the person putting on the activity. Publicizing. So we have newspapers, newsletters. Are there already existing newsletters that go out to a few hundred people, for example? The Urban Ecology Center is a really great nonprofit here, and they have a newsletter that goes out to all their members. It's a few hundred people. I'm not exactly sure how many hundred, but it goes out to a lot of people. So we plug into their newsletter. Excuse me. Create Facebook pages or Facebook events. This is something last year that I really needed help with and outreach. So are there people in the community or other individuals who I can reach out to more? These are the things that come up for me of, can I reach out more to people who are really excited about Facebook where they can create these events? But as the glue or as the organizer, I ask people to promote their own events. So if I'm having a potluck at my house for Power Down Week, I'm going to tell my friends and family. That's where I see the most success that people show up, where there's two places for publicizing, not just Power Down Week and Transition Milwaukee, but also the individual organization. So for example, Underwear Bike Ride is an event that lots of people go to, and so we partner with them and they let people know, hey, we put it on our Power Down Week schedule, but they also have a huge outreach already. So you want to get the schedule created and formatted into a readable document. So once you have it come together, so your infrastructure might be a website where people can plug in their own events. Once you have that schedule, I do recommend figuring out a way for people to be able to have access to the schedule while they can power down. So not having it be just online, or asking people to write it down on their own before the week starts. Or, so a few ways, as I mentioned, you could have a centralized location. So I was thinking about putting chalkboards outside of people's homes throughout the community. So I might have a chalkboard or have a contest like, hey, who has the fanciest, it could be a contest or a challenge, like who can create the fanciest, poster board for the week or chalkboard for the week outside your house, and they write the daily schedule of Power Down Week. There's a few businesses in the area who also had printed schedules. So you can print out copies of the schedule. You can also go around to local businesses and ask them if they'd be willing for people to be able to come in there to see if there's changes to the schedule. So for example, if there is a rescheduled or a canceled event, I go to 5 businesses in the community and let them know, hey, this was canceled, and is it doable for me as an organizer to go to 5 different places or maybe 3 different places? And so people in the community know to go to these 3 to 5 businesses to find out cancellations or rescheduled. While also, there are some times when I have to go to an event and sit at this park. Like for example, there was a mandolin workshop, or it was a ukulele workshop last year, and it didn't happen. And so going to the park, being there and saying, hey, I'm really sorry. Do you want to sit and talk for a bit? Do we want to hang out? Hey, let me see your ukulele. Talking to people and being at those locations, but also asking the individuals who are organizing that activity to maybe go to the park to explain. So that was something that happened last year, where somebody was at the park explaining to people, hey, I'm really sorry it got canceled. We're going to try for next year. But when you power down or turn off your phones, turn off the computer, that's a real challenge. So for example, we had a local radio station that we advertised with, and they were trying to get a hold of me last year to do a community story, and they weren't able to get a hold of me because I was checking my email. I checked my email maybe once or twice that week, and so they weren't able to get a hold of me, which kind of loses credibility. Like I was really thinking, hey, does this lose credibility for Power Down Week? So those are some of the challenges that I have to say, you know what, I'm just going to make sure next year that I reach out more, or that I put some sort of auto email response in my email that says, hey, I won't be available until after Power Down Week. If you need to get a hold of me, here's how you can get a hold of me. Also, during the week, you can take pictures. So publicize before the event and then also during the week. Hey, Sarah, do you mind talking a little bit about the chalking that you did, like in the middle of the street?
Well, we just had someone, I didn't do the chalking, but we had somebody really excited who did a lot of chalking, I would say beforehand. And then there's like lots of Power Down Week and things like that, but we didn't have communication during the week with with chalk. And we also had the mud stencils, which I don't know if you clearly explained, but people made stencils and then used mud to advertise that Power Down Week was coming, and they put them all around, both on the ground, and then the stencils were on cardboard, recycled pieces of cardboard, and all the businesses that participated, we put those mud stencils in their windows so that it was like a symbol that they were powering down. And I think that then some of those businesses where we tried to have the schedules where you could put notices like you were talking about cancellations. But,
yeah. So thinking about the communication during the week beforehand and the fun. So I feel like chalking or mud stenciling is something really fun. I had no idea that you could take some dirt, add some water, and essentially it's like a temporary paint that's on the sidewalk.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it washes off, and so it sticks around and washes off, and it's just a really nice way to get the word out. Somebody was saying that they saw a huge chalk in the middle of like a street that said Power Down Week. So, and to hear stories from throughout the community is really great as years go on to hear the stories. So during the week, gather stories. You could either have people take pictures or ask them, what was great for them for Power Down Week. Send thank yous to different activities. But this week, the point of this week is to really maximize the fun while minimizing our carbon footprint, and to do it together if possible. And to really look within, how do we power down our own internal stresses by collaborating and coming together. So think about evaluation for the week. So for example, if you can keep track of the numbers of how many people were there, that's awesome. If that's too much, then think about, hey, you know what, I can only do so much as the organizer. And how much are we able to give to this? So meeting yourself where you're at while also pushing yourself to grow stronger and to evaluate each year. So for example, with the radio station who want to do a community story, I now know this year I really want to build a relationship with them and do a community story. Because they wanted to come to the mandolin workshop, which got canceled. And so there was, I just know that I have to be aware of how that affects me, and then what can I do ongoing or in the future to build that relationship and to apologize or to really be present as best as possible with them in the future. And then, again, just continue learning and growing within our organizing. So something I wanted to open up to the group. So we're going to go into question and answer. But I wanted to open up to the group to ask you all what you do in your life or what have you seen to power down. So, for example, if I ever go to a place that has an escalator, I take the stairs because I realized that even going on the escalator, it takes more energy for the escalator to pull me up the stairs. So now I walk up the stairs, and it feels really good. So what are some things that you do in your community? And maybe, Carolyn, you can explain how people can press 1 or 2 in order to, I don't know how the
I'll do that, Zahner.
Oh,
So the invitation to people on the call right now is just, to share some ideas of what you already do to power down, or I guess, too, what you could imagine doing. And just press 1 on your keypad on your phone, and that'll put your hand up, and I can call on you. I guess, too, if you have a question or comment, press 1 on your keypad as well. And so someone break the ice, press 1 on your keypad. Get us started here.
I can, while we're waiting for one of you to raise your hand, I can just mention a couple things that we didn't talk about that I'd wanted to talk about. We didn't talk about that we made a bike generator to power our stage for our 4th of July event, which was really fun and really a great outreach tool and really neat for people to see actually how little energy they were making. Like, it took a lot of work and tons of energy. And also that was an interesting issue because it brings up a lot of, again, the theme of the week or the goal of the week in terms of is it to outreach or is it just to experiencing power down? Because that was a project people got very excited about, and it was a wonderful outreach project, but it also takes tons of energy actually, and it's kind of can be thought of as pretty inefficient. So it just we would have lots of dialogue and debate about it in our community about that aspect of it. So do we have any hands up?
No, we don't yet.
No?
So
okay.
Any questions from people or thoughts about what do you think of Power Down Week? Or let's hear from somebody. Come on. Still no one with
Still no one? Cool. Well, I'm going to share another thing that I wanted to talk about, too, that I realized I forgot about. One of the fun things, we had one person, someone who I invited in to do a skit with us, who hadn't been really active in the transition movement, and I invited to do a skit. She really got into doing the skit and really was huge in doing Power Down Week, the first year, decided to just unplug her fridge and her freezer. And then she had all this, she did have meat and things in her freezer, so she had to use it up really quickly. So then they used it, they cooked it in the garden that first year, and it was this wonderful sharing experience of everybody enjoying her food, because she pretended she was kind of like had an emergency, as if the electricity had gone off in her house. And I think it just added to the staycation aspect so much for the people that were really participating in that. And so just the pleasure of a pretend emergency, almost how it brings you together in that way, and forces you to share. So
yeah, thank you for that. And reminds me too that it's all good practice too for an emergency, and creating such a aura of fun and connection actually lowers fear when an emergency does happen, because people can remember, well, it wasn't so bad to cook everything from my freezer, and there was so much sharing and all of this. So it's a very good opportunity to build that muscle.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Oh, bravo, wonderful. Still no hands up, but I think maybe Zahner, was that you?
Yeah, what do you think about, I have a couple more challenges I wanted to share.
Okay.
And some things that we kind of problem solve around. I heard some feedback one year where somebody was asked to do a workshop, and not many people came to the workshop. And so this person was doing a workshop on woodworking. Let's just say, I'm not exactly sure what the workshop was, but they were really offended that nobody had showed up. And so we talked about it a bit, and I realized that sometimes as organizers we can feel like we're responsible for getting people to the table. And that's why this past year the focus was really about the joint publicizing, that if they want to do this workshop they can, but I almost feel like they were maybe like really asked, like, please, 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 could you do that? Or that was their perception, that their perception was that you begged me to do this and then nobody came. So essentially their comment was, I'm not going to do this next year if you can't get anybody to come. And so we talked a lot about that, and trying to do the collaborative publicizing, which was really interesting, to empower us to work together versus it's my it's me asking you to do the workshop and then you feeling like nobody showed up because they didn't want to go. So thinking about that a bit was really helpful. How about now? Are there any other hands? I just want to be mindful of other hands. Any other questions? Or any questions? Something else that's really helpful or that I appreciated was there's this quote that Don Hall had introduced me to by Howard Thurman that says, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes them come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. And so if we can walk away from this teleconference just thinking about, what makes us come alive, can we go do that? It's really helpful to bring people together and to feel alive and in connection with the earth. And so that's my goal for Power Down Week, is to do things that really help us feel alive. One other thing that came up as a challenge, I have a friend this year, and he was showing me a lot of these inventions that he's been doing, taking so for example, he'll take old computers and turn them into other sorts of mechanical devices, or taking old television screens, so the big television screens that maybe are about 3 feet high that had like the big bubble face, they sat on the ground, and they were really big televisions, and those screens can create a lot of solar heat. And so he would take something, and he would be able to, in a matter of just a little bit of time, that solar heat would actually heat things up to where it could start a fire, almost like a magnifying glass. And so I was talking with a friend one day, and he said, well, I'm not really into powering down. I don't think we should power down. I just think that we should find alternative energies and work that way. And so I realized that he really didn't agree with the lowering your carbon footprint and doing it together, but there was commonalities. We still found a common thread where he takes reused materials and repurposes them. And so within the conversation, he did agree that that is really helpful to use and utilize the things that we already have. So I said, well, do you think that we should, I was trying to think of some commonalities, and I said, do you think we should continue getting new stuff all the time, like just buy? He says, no, we have a lot of stuff already we can literally just use. And so that was a really common thread that we had that was really helpful for him and I to see some common ground. And I'm not here to convince him to do a workshop, so I just kind of left that conversation, but we'll revisit it for Power Down Week of, hey, what do you think about talking about reused materials? But I also want to be careful not to invade into his space. If he doesn't want to promote powering down, I want to respect that as well. But also, I would like to promote powering down. So, how can we not block each other, but still do what our passions are and see the common thread? Any questions for Sarah or I?
We don't have any hands up at the moment, and so I think what we'll do is just sort of go into, closing comments from you two, and we'll wrap it up.
Sure. The one other thing I wanted to add, and I think that you've touched base on, Zahner, but I did want to go a little bit further into it, that we've had some discussions about organizing and the workshops, and if we did want to bring money into it, and the different ways of looking at it, how it's really wonderful to both share it and have it be a gift economy, and being open to people if they want to charge, or the idea of maybe even having a fee or donation requested for workshops and trying to pay one person to organize. And we've thus far decided to mainly stay with just volunteer organization and really the gift economy and keeping it simpler that way. But I think that that's an option that we have explored, and for me, it's not off the table if the community really got excited about it and wanted to, raise funds so that they could pay one of them to focus more on organizing it. It might be a really way to keep it a viable and exciting week. So I just wanted to share that idea too.
And Sarah, did you want to make any additional closing comment at this point, and then we'll go to Zahner?
Yeah. I think, Zahner, you said almost all of it really, really well, just about it being about community building and connecting. And, I feel like we've said a lot of the really important things about it. So, no, I'm excited that people are listening. And, so grateful to everybody that's been working on this, and grateful to be sharing it.
Thank you, Sarah.
And I hope we've inspired some people to think about doing it themselves or doing it with their friends or family or their neighbors.
Yeah, I have no doubt about that. Zahner, closing comments?
You there, Zahner?
I really appreciate the time, and one of the thoughts that had come up for me was, what might it look like if we had Power Down Week all at the same time in different cities throughout the country? Mm-hmm. What might that impact look, and what might it look from Riverwest, which is the community myself and Sarah lives in, to Milwaukee at the city level? What can we do to spread outside of Riverwest? And then, are there other folks throughout the country who might be interested in doing it that same week, and how that might make an impact? It all makes an impact, but it would do it at a grander level. So for me, it's just I sometimes make believe, or fantasize of what might it look like if we if we did do something like that where we were just mindful of our energy usage for a week and reduced it together or separate and ongoing, as little or as much as possible. So that for me is really inspiring and hopeful that we can create a world where we rely more on one another. I'll be with a group of friends and I'll ask a question and they'll say, oh, just Google it. And I'll say, no, I actually want to see between the five of us if we can figure out how to spell this word or how to think about something. And I really appreciate the collective brain power that we have. So I'm really excited to learn from one another and hope that and think about, even as Sarah Moore was thinking about maybe powering down once a week. Like, can I commit in my household to once a week where we don't have the music on, or we don't have a television, but we watch movies every so often. So thinking about how to reduce our laptop usage or our usage of our computer and whatnot. So even just doing that once a week and ongoing, doing it together or separate, but just knowing that the folks on the call and people involved in transition, I feel like I'm not alone. And so that feels really good. It feels like a sense of belonging. And I have a wonderful, wonderful family, but sometimes they're not really interested in powering down with me. And there's lots of love there. And so how do I continue seeing the love and living my life and finding other folks who do have similar interests to me to power down together and creating little impacts personally, or big impact personally, to be a part of this world with others in a caring way.
Thank you both so much. It's really inspiring, and when you mentioned it's sort of happening concurrently in different towns and cities, that could be so powerful. So I hope someone else from on the call or who listens to it afterwards decides, hey, I'm going to get this going. And again, we can share and learn from each other. And really great things are coming out of Milwaukee, you guys. You're just wonderful. Really leading some great new initiatives and playfulness and partnerships and all kinds of great stuff. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm going to go ahead.
Is there a way to unmute everyone and just hear who's on the call, just to say the name and where they're from?
I'm going to do that.
Cool.
I'm going to mute everyone, or give you the mic, actually. And maybe you could say where you're from, and can start with Dawn Hawkins-Nixon. Where are you from, Dawn?
Yes, this is Dawn. I'm from Prince George's County in the state of Maryland, and we are just starting up a sustainability program in our county. And one of our focus areas is energy efficiency and promotion of renewable energy. So we're looking at or exploring some of the programs and initiatives that have been undertaken by various communities throughout the nation to assess how effective those initiatives are, and to also perhaps adopt those programs and efforts into our own programs.
Wonderful.
So I found your discussion pretty interesting. The funny thing about sustainability for me is that it kind of throws me back about 20 years in terms of the things we used to do before we got to the point where we were sitting in front of our computers all day and all evening and watching cable TV all day and on the weekends. We used to be more involved in the outside, and we not only appreciated what was out there, but we were aware of what was going on out there. So a lot of what I heard in your discussion kind of reinforced some of the thoughts that have been flowing through my head over the last few months as I've become more involved in sustainability planning.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Dan, I know where you're from. Dan, Felix?
You're talking about Dan Felix? Yeah. Sorry, I chimed in very late here. But for other people on the line who don't know me, I'm from Transition Milwaukee too. Live in a south suburb of the city, and had the good fortune to work with Sarah for some years now. And one of the things that I would kind of like to see emerge is something a little closer to my own neighborhood. The funny part of it is to participate in some of the events. My carbon footprint actually goes up that time of year to go over to the part of town where all my friends are doing everything. So we need to get some things going closer to my house.
Well, I'm sure you can do it, and I hope it ripples out that far. Thank you. Anne?
Yes, I'm here, and I feel a little sheepish that it's all these Milwaukee people listening in, but I just want to congratulate Sarah and Zahner for a job well done, and thank you very much, Carolyn and everybody at Transition US, for the organizing and network creating work you do. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Anne. Appreciate all you guys are doing, too, that's for sure. And Jessica?
Hi. Yeah, I'm from Milwaukee, too. My name is Jessica, and I was just listening in for support. So to mirror Dan and Anne's comments, congratulations, and thank you for taking this on as a potential national campaign, Carolyn.
Yeah, thank you, Jessica. We did lose a few people. We lost 3 people. I think they had to probably roll off at the top of the hour. But Joni, go ahead.
Hi, I'm from Charlottesville, Virginia, and we're about to have a strategic planning meeting on March 2nd, and I'm definitely going to toss out power down ideas. So thank you very, very much for putting this on.
Wonderful. So glad to hear that. Nancy?
Hi, this is Nancy from Charlottesville Transition. Hi, Joni. I was also interested in how to incorporate this in some upcoming activities because Charlottesville has a lot coming up this spring, and it might be fun to have some of these Power Down events part of those activities. So thank you for the great presentation.
Lovely. Ben?
Hi, I'm Ben from Goshen, Indiana, and I really like the idea of sharing an idea that worked elsewhere and that can be replicated pretty easily. So thanks for sharing. And
that's all of you who are still on the call. Again, we lost 3 people. Don't know where they were from offhand. I don't think they were Milwaukee folks, though, so there was a few others that heard it. So hopefully we'll hear from them. And just wanted to thank you all for being on the call today. And thank you very much, Zahner and Sarah, and all of you wonderful Milwaukee folks for making such yet another great thing happen.